Hi everybody, and welcome to Observing with Webb on YouTube for October. Looking at my notes here, we've got October being a very exciting month. We have a second of 4 total lunar eclipses in this current tetrad. In other words, we have a lunar eclipse this month. We also have a partial solar eclipse and some really dark skies for the annual Orionid meteor shower. So 3 good things going on that are special in October, along with the moon going past the planets, as well as Mars and Jupiter being pretty visible for this month. So I'm running low on time, so let's just go right in. In fact, I think I'm just going to talk about the total lunar eclipse and the partial solar eclipse first, and then the Orionid meteor shower. Get those out of the way, and then we can look at the basics of the sky. So let's head straight to the total lunar eclipse. So I'm going to set my date for October 8th, and I'm actually going to go to the morning because that's when it starts, at least for us on the East Coast. Now, as far as the total lunar eclipse goes, for those of us on the East Coast, which is probably all 5 of you who will watch this video, probably on the East Coast, we'll see about the first half of the lunar eclipse. Because if you take a look here, you've got the moon up there, all right, and there's the Earth's shadow. What's going to happen is time's going to go by, and then let's zoom in a little bit more. Okay, time's going to go by. Center this. And if you look at the moon, you'll notice that it gets darker and darker as time goes by, but then right around totality, a little bit afterward, it sets. And then we can't see the rest of it. So that's the basic idea of what's going on the East Coast. Now, if you live more west, you will see this a lot better, Western United States. It'll be higher in the sky, and you'll see more of it the further west you are. And from what I looked at, it looks like Hawaii's got the best observing of them all, because they're right in the middle. Now, for East Coasters, I'm going to go into the details for the time. Okay, for the time, about 5:15 a.m. 5:15 is when you're first going to see the umbra, the dark inner portion of the shadow, of the Earth's shadow, actually touching the moon. And that's when the partial eclipse starts. So from 5:15 to 6:25, so for about an hour, that partialness happens. Okay, that partial eclipse is happening. Okay, and it keeps eating away and eating away at the moon. More and more of it disappears. And then at 6:25 is when the total eclipse actually happens. So you will have, dawn is coming soon, so the sky is going to be lighting up, and the moon's going to be still dark. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Starry night tells me one thing, diagrams tell me another. It's going to be very interesting because you'll have a total eclipse of the moon during the dawn, which is really neat. But anyway, the sun rises at 7:08. So 6:25, right now what we're looking at is when totality starts. Okay. 6:55 is when totality happens, which is when I'm sorry, not totality. It's mid-eclipse at 6:55. So that's the very middle of the eclipse. It looks like, according to this, it's set. Okay. And then a little bit further, 7:08 is when the sun technically rises. So basically, for those of us on the East Coast, depending on where you are, all of you should be able to see the partial eclipse, partial. You should be able to see some of the total starting at 6:25, although it might be difficult with the dawn. A really good opportunity to get out your camera to just get really cool views of this, which would be really neat. Now, let's move on to the next big event of the month, which is the Orionid meteor shower. So that's going to be on the morning of the 22nd. Okay. Let's get the moon out of there. The morning of the 22nd. The morning of the 22nd is the Orionid meteor shower. You'll see Orion high up in the south. For the meteor shower, it's technically actually active all month, okay? But between the 20th and the 22nd of October, that's when you get the most meteors. Usually, the Orionids give you about 20 fast and faint meteors under dark skies. And as you can see, even early in the morning, the moon's not going to be out. Really, it's not going to be out at all. If anything, on the 20th, you might see a very thin crescent, but that's only very early in the morning, and it's not going to provide much light pollution. But what you want to do is you want to go out, and you want to find Orion, and you want to look generally in that direction. Don't look at the whole thing. I'm sorry, don't look at like just Orion. Look at the entire sky as a whole. And make sure you have layers because it's going to be cold. Maybe bring a warm beverage. Maybe also make sure you get away from lights. The further away you are from lights and the darker it is, the more meteors you're going to see. Also, your pupils they will dilate a little bit, but if you wait outside for 10-20 minutes, they will really dilate even more, and you'll be able to see even more meteors as well. It's called dark adaptation. But yeah, I think that's pretty good advice for watching. Best time to look is in the early morning. The early morning is best because, if you can see, I'll rewind time. If you rewind time, you notice that in the evening, Orion's pretty low. And Orion is where the meteors appear to be coming from. That's where the radiant is. So you can see that only about half of the sky where they'd be coming from, or where they'd be going into, is visible. Whereas early in the morning, it's much higher, and you can see that you'll be able to see more meteors because there's more sky for the meteors to touch on. But anyway, then the next night, or well, 23rd, October 23rd, that is the partial solar eclipse. Okay, now, East Coasters, again, people on the East Coast of the United States, not much luck. Since the partial part of the eclipse will start right before sunset. So if I go to sunset on the 23rd, okay, that's when you would really see this eclipse happening. Now, starry night isn't really going to do much justice to this, okay? Because what I really have to do is let's move to a different area. Let's go to somewhere in the west here. Okay. If I'm out in the west and I look for the sun, where'd you go, sun? There you are. Okay. If I zoom in, you'll see, in fact, let's center on the sun. Okay. You'll see the moon, as time goes by, the moon crosses over the sun. Okay. Now, that's what happens if you're out west. If you are back where we live, and you're looking toward the west, you'll see the sun, and the moon will be very close. You won't see the moon, but it'll be close. The thing is that, well, if you want to see this, you'll have to go to find a location that has a very clear view of the western horizon. As you can see, even my starry night does not have a clear enough view of the horizon. It's got trees in the way. You need very clear view of that horizon. And go out after 5 p.m. Okay, after 5 p.m. and wait for the eclipse to start. Starry night here is telling me it'll start around 5:30, but I heard closer to 5. It kind of depends on where you live as well, but get out after 5. And it should start around 5:50 or something like that. But it depends on your exact location. And see if you can find the partial eclipse. Now, I hear in Philadelphia about half of the moon should be, half of the sun should be covered up by the moon. I don't know if that's the case out here in Lancaster County. My guess is that it would probably be a little bit more, but I'm not sure. But go out there after 5 o'clock Eastern time and take a look at the sun, but don't look with your naked eye. You got to make sure you have like welder's glasses or a solar filter. And I'm going to put a little link in the notes here for Sky and Telescope telling you all about that. But anyway, would be good if you have the proper filters. That's a very cool thing to look at. I just don't know how how much of it is really going to be visible, and that's based on you and where you are. So there should be more of these. In fact, 2017, there's a full solar eclipse that goes across the entire United States. That's the one to really prepare for. But anyway, those are the big events. Let's talk about the night sky in general. And let's start off with the planets that we can see. Essentially, for this month, and let me get back to, let's say the 15th, okay? The planets for this month are pretty much Mars and Jupiter. Technically, Saturn is out there in the west as the sun sets, but it's very low, and it's when the sun is setting, so it's still dawn and light out, which means it's not going to be easy to find. But Mars is out there, out in the southwest, and I have that, you look for that visibly red star out there in the southwest, okay? In the southwest, you find that red star, and it's actually right near the middle of the Milky Way, which if you have binoculars or a telescope, not only can you look for Mars, you can look for stuff like the Lagoon Nebula or the Sagittarius cluster or M23, M25, some other clusters that are out there. So that's pretty cool. Mars is going to set by around 9 p.m., somewhere around there, so you want to get out there before then, like between 9 o'clock and the setting of the sun and when it's dark, to find Mars. To find the other planet of this month, you'll have to look in the opposite direction, out in the east, and you'll have to wait for the night to pass by. You'll have to wait for Taurus and Orion and Gemini, and you'll have to wait. There it is. There's Jupiter, off toward the east. You have to get up after 2:30 in the morning, but before sunrise, which is 7:16, okay? And you will see Jupiter out there in the east. If you're looking for it and you're having trouble finding it, you might want to wait till the 17th or the 18th, which is when the moon is right by it. So if you take a look here, on the 17th, Jupiter is here in, the moon is here in Cancer, and Jupiter's here. Oh, and then on the 18th, you've got Jupiter, the moon, and actually Regulus, which is Leo's brightest star. They make a really nice triangle in the night sky. All right. So that's Jupiter and Mars. Those are the basic ones you can see. Mercury, you might be able to catch it toward the end of the month if you look toward the east in the morning. Okay, right there, but it's going to be tough to find. And Venus, don't even worry about it for this month. Venus is just lost, really, in the glare of the sun. So, yeah, let's talk about, let's follow the moon and see what sorts of things it goes through this month, starting October 1st, right around sunset. Now, October 1st is when you have the first quarter moon. Means the moon is up, the right half is lit. That would be today that I'm recording this. The right half is lit, and you can see that from sunset all the way to about midnight. Okay? Then what happens is over the next 7 days, the moon gets higher in the sky and fuller until the 8th, which is when you have the full moon. And that you can see from sunset to sunrise. And that just so happens to be when, and the only time when, the lunar eclipse can occur, and that happens more towards the morning on the 8th. So you got that lunar eclipse on the 8th, and then again, not much happens, because over the next couple days, the moon starts getting less lit and skinnier, if you will, until the 15th, which is when it's the third quarter moon. Now, the thing with the third quarter moon is you won't be able to see it until about midnight, and then it's going to be visible even into the morning, which is nice. You can see a moon in the morning sky, which is kind of cool. So that's the 15th. And then on the 17th and 18th, I showed you this, the moon's going to be close to Jupiter. Okay? Again, you have to get out after 2:30, look for the crescent moon. It'll be about Jupiter will be 9 degrees down from the moon on the 17th, and on the 18th, it's making that nice triangle. Okay? Then moving on, following the moon, On the 25th, oh, it disappeared. Let's go earlier in the morning. On the 25th, oh, wait, it's past new moon. New moon is on the 23rd. That's the darkest skies, and that's also the day of the solar eclipse. Solar eclipse can only happen on a new moon. So, now that it's a new moon, let's switch and take a look at sunset in the west. That's when the moon starts to be seen. And it becomes an evening object again. And now you look in the southwest, you might be able to catch Saturn and the moon over here, but as you can see, even in this, it's very, very bright and hard to see. You might catch it low on the horizon. And then the next couple days, you'll see 26th, the moon is thicker and higher. 27th, 7th, thicker and higher. And now it's actually close to Mars. And on the 27th, it's about, let's see, what did I say? I said about 10 degrees to the right of Mars. And then on the next day, it'll be about 8 degrees above Mars. And it'll be much thicker as a crescent moon. And yeah, so then the next phase is on October 30th, Mischief Night. You'll have a first quarter moon once again. And on Halloween night, you'll see a little bit fuller than a quarter moon up there. And throughout the night, you've got a couple cool things to see. If you're out there, you can see Mars in the southwest on Halloween, a nice moon. You can still see off in the west, you can see the summer triangle here, which would be Cygnus, Aquila, and Lyra. And you can see Pegasus kind of off in the south-southeast. Pegasus, a fall constellation coming in. And if you're really good under very dark skies, you might even be able to see the Andromeda Galaxy over here. And you know what? I think I'm going to skip the constellations for this month. Yeah, I hope you have very clear dark skies and you get to witness those eclipses. Adios.